All right, hello and welcome back. So in this video, there's going to be a little bit of overlap from what you've already heard, but we're going to build it into more of a mental framework on how to view life. Okay, and this is something that I personally learned from studying security, um, mixed martial arts, situational awareness. I won't go into all that stuff. Working with my trainer, as I've talked to you, and then I was really thinking about this stuff, and I'm like, is that really biblical? Like, how does that? And then, of course, it turns out like I really think it's biblical, and I'll tell you why. But it's like I'm really kind of considering these things, and then 2 years into hanging out with my mentor, I'm like, yeah, man, I know everything he's going to teach me, and then he drops it on me, and it's the same way of thinking. So I got it over here training with this Christian combatives trainer, and I come over here and unprompted, my mentor tells me the same thing, and I'm like, whoa, okay, got it. And then my mentor told me where he gets it in the Bible, and it's like, okay, I guess that's what you're trying to teach me. So again, critical think this, you're welcome to, but there's going to be a little bit of overview, but we're going to build on what we've already talked about. Okay, so there's the sheep and the shepherd. These are two different characters in the Bible. You have the shepherd, who is, by the way, the word in Latin for pastor means shepherd, literally. So when they say there's a shepherd in the ancient Latin, they would say pastor. That's what a shepherd is. Okay, so you have the pastor, the shepherd of the flock of sheep, and then there were the sheep. What did the sheep want? The sheep wanted green grass. And you see this all over. What did the Israelites want? And what did God promise them? A land flowing with milk and honey. The green fields with the flowers that the bees make the honey from. And what the honey is the sweetness, and milk, right? Milk and honey. Where does milk come from? The cows that are eating the green grass. So it's obviously very lush, and we've got meat, and this is a great land. And so where does God want to take us? And where does he generally want to take people? He wants to take them to the promised land. Now, who is it that is generally asking for this sort of life, this sort of ease? Well, it's sheep. So we look at maybe King David in the New Testament. King David's the shepherd, and he's caring for his sheep. And I think that there are different callings. This isn't to say everybody should be a shepherd or everybody should be a sheep. It's just to tell you one way to break this down, kind of break down your role in the church. And you can decide what it is. The sheep are the group that aren't necessarily really thinking things through. This is also us in some ways, but me in some ways. But the sheep are literally just looking down their nose, and they're saying, where's the grass? Where's the next grass? And what do they want to do? They want to eat, and they just sort of want to have things easy. And sheep are super easy to fool. They're not very smart. If one sheep walks off the edge of a cliff and the others are just following that sheep, they just walk right off with them. So when you have a sheep, it'll just keep wandering off and keep wandering off and keep wandering off. And what does the shepherd have to do? Break the leg of the sheep, and then he throws the sheep over its back and carries the sheep around until the sheep can figure it out. And boy, I've been that before. God has had to really get through to me. I got a thick head. And what's my goal is, when God talks, like, just learn it the first time, so I don't have to be, like, let's not do that. Okay. But the sheep are not really aware of what's going on around them. The sheep are wandering around, and they're getting picked off by the wolves. They're getting picked off by the bears. They're falling off cliffs. And the only thing they really care about is just finding green grass. That's what they want. So the sheep are unaware of what's happening around them, and the sheep are unaware of the dangers. They are not very aware of the situation. Okay, so now there are lots of people like this, and in many different ways. When you talk about, and again, I'm just, because it's easy to visualize, when you talk about being aware of things around you, right? Like with mixed martial arts and a lot of different things, I walk around with my head up and I'm looking to see who's around me. And do you know what I notice is I can walk through a whole mall and nobody will even see me, because they're all have their nose in their phone. They're all doing something here, and they have no idea what's around them. And in the security industry, they call that white, which is completely unaware, as opposed to being yellow, which is, okay, I at least know what's going on around me. It doesn't mean you're paranoid. It just means you know what's around you. And this is also true with this sheep versus the shepherd. The sheep are white. They're totally unaware of what's happening around them. And what's happening with the shepherd? The shepherd knows the dangers. Let's talk about King David. Before he fought Goliath, what did he tell Saul? I believe it's Saul. He told Saul that, well, I've already fought lions and tigers and bears and like all the things that he'd fought. And what does David, who became the king after fighting Goliath, what does he know? He knows the dangers. He knows about the big cracks and the crevices in the field that the sheep can fall into. So what's he do? He walks on the side of the sheep to keep them from falling into the pit. And what does he do? The wayward son, right? The sheep that goes astray. When a sheep goes astray, he finds a way to keep the other sheep pinned and entertained. And he goes after the sheep and he finds it and he brings it back. He knows what can happen to the sheep. Furthermore, he knows of the dangers. He knows that there is a, like we see in the scripture, the devil prowls around like a roaring lion. He knows the lions are going to prowl around. This is in the same area. Obviously, this is in the Northeast Africa and the Middle East, where at that time there were lions. So the lions actually prowled around looking for a nice sheep to devour. The sheep had no idea. They don't know what's going on. They have no defenses, completely unaware. Is he aware? Yes. The wolves and the bears and like whatever else it was, I forget in that passage, you can put it in the comments. There's all these things that he knows are coming for the sheep. And he's okay with that. Being a shepherd was brutal. And so what did King David say? He's like, why would I be afraid of Goliath? Get this, Goliath, who's presumably a giant in some way. Maybe he was just a really big person, but the Bible says giant. So whatever that means, he's a giant. This is the boss fight on level 9,000. And David's not even scared. He's a kid. He's like, I'm not worried about it. He's not bigger than that bear I fought last week. So what was David doing? David is not expecting, like the sheep, for things to be easy. No, he's like, nope, we're going to fight the bears and we're going to fight the lions. And yeah, we're going to have to go fish some stuff out of the cracks. I might fall into the big crevices. He's comfortable with the dangers and the threats that come along with being a shepherd. And he has made his peace with that. And then what happens when the big fight comes, when the, what do you want to say? The biggest opportunity in his life, which is disguised as the biggest battle, comes, he's not panicking, right? Even the king's panicking. He's like, here, take my armor, take my sword. And he's like, what is this stuff? Like, this is too big. This is too heavy. Like, I don't want any of this junk. I can't move at all. Just give me my slingshot, man. And the guy's like, are you crazy? He's not crazy. He's seasoned. He's skilled. He's prepared. He's comfortable and he's not panicking. The king kind of panicking. He's like, I'm okay. I got this. He's made his peace. He knows the risks, but he goes down there and he takes care of business and he has what? Victory in the darkest hour. The highest risk is when you also have the possibility for the highest reward. Doesn't mean you take risk just for kicks. We're not gambling at the slots or something. He assessed the risk. He said, this is a risk I'm equipped to handle. Nobody else understood it. But he's like, I've already faced stuff bigger than him, and I know exactly how to do it. And this is a risk I'm willing to take. It was a big risk, and he had a huge reward on the back end. Right? If I remember right, he married the king's daughter. He got the princess. He was rewarded with wealth and all this other stuff. And of course, later became king because of his faith. Right? He went into battle with faith. Okay, so thinking of the difference here between the sheep and the shepherd, the sheep are expecting ease and comfort and pleasure. The shepherd, not expecting ease and comfort and pleasure. It's like the least pleasurable job. You're wandering around in the wilderness, and there are these vicious beasts that are trying to kill you and eat your flock. And that's just your life. And you've got to be ready 24 hours a day to wake up and fight a bear. Okay, well, that's what we're talking about. And that's King David, right? And that's Moses. Go over to Pharaoh and just tell him to let my people go. Are you out of your mind? That's the most powerful person in the world. He will behead me. I don't even know. That's crazy. No, go do that. Okay. So in this video, we're comparing the difference between the sheep and the shepherd. In the next video, we're going to get a little bit more into what that makes King David in this example. Shepherds are different than sheep, and shepherds expect hardship. We embrace reality. We understand it's going to be tough, and we're just going to have to be okay with that. Okay? So that has some implications on our identity when we really follow that through. And so in the next video, we're going to talk about why King David was a little bit of a monster, like a beast. Let's talk about that in the next video. I'll see you there. God bless.